Welcome back to my channel. I'm thrilled to have you here, and today's story is one I think you'll love. So, without further delay, let's dive in. I paused briefly, attempting to lean nonchalantly against the stone tile column, observing the holiday crowd as inconspicuously as possible. They passed by oblivious to me, focused on shopping, sipping flavored coffees, and endlessly typing away on their phones. The reassuring weight of my hidden firearm pressed against my ribs, a source of comfort after weeks spent in Dubai, where I had to rely solely on my instincts and hand-to-hand combat. Not that those skills had dulled, they had been sharpened by the high-stakes cybersecurity job that kept my awareness razor-sharp. I moved another few feet, and managed to sit at one of the tables in the mall's food court. I pulled a discarded soda cup in front of me, making it appear as though I had a legitimate reason for sitting there, other than finding a quiet spot to process the disturbing information I had just uncovered. The cold fury coursing through me made it difficult to stay still, but years of discipline allowed me to maintain a calm exterior. Everything had gone wrong, but I was certain at least one of them was dead likely too. My wife Veronica and her lover, Jonathan Blackwell, the infamous arms dealer known as the Phantom. Just thinking of them made my jaw tighten. Someone must have forgotten that I was a Navy SEAL for years before transitioning into cybersecurity. I had been exceptionally good at it, leaving behind more than my fair share of enemies. Now it seemed I might need to add 2 more to that list if they were truly trying to kill me. They had been careless. Arms dealers and their henchmen don't usually start shooting without first identifying their target, especially not when that target is a former Navy SEAL turned cybersecurity expert. I fumbled for the cheap prepaid phone I had purchased at a kiosk. The seller probably hadn't believed my story about a bank computer crash, but $200 in cash had gotten me an untraceable phone in 3 hours, plenty of time for him to report the transaction to someone higher up. Not that I blamed him. He likely sensed something was off, and as a new immigrant from the Middle East, probably didn't want to get involved in anything suspicious. Let him call, it didn't matter. I doubted the 3 hours of talk time I bought would even be necessary. I clumsily pulled a scrap of business card from my wallet and dialed the number on the phone. K2 Executive Services, a curt woman's voice answered. I steadied my voice as much as possible. I need help. My wife is trying to kill me. The line went dead with a click. I slumped in my seat, closing my eyes in frustration. Damn it. I had no idea what to do next. This might be the end. I'd have to take them both out myself, consequences be damned. My phone buzzed in my hand, a text from an unknown number containing only a link. I had nothing to lose, so I tapped it. The phone responded with downloading app. After a few tense seconds, an icon appeared on the screen, featuring a stylized K2. I pressed it, and the phone automatically dialed K2 Executive Services. The voice that answered was muffled and strange, as though the person was speaking underwater, likely some form of scrambling code. Please hold your phone at arm's length and look into the screen, the voice instructed. I followed the directive and watched as the screen pulsed, capturing my picture. The image briefly flashed on the screen. My complexion looked grey, probably from shock and barely restrained anger. Almost immediately, the woman's voice returned. Name, please. Dominic Thorne, I replied. There was a short pause, and I got the unsettling feeling she was running a credit check. What is your operational status? Armed, uninjured, but in immediate need of assistance, I answered. What is the nature of your situation, she asked. My wife is involved with an arms dealer, Jonathan Blackwell. They've been selling classified information I had access to. I need to neutralize the threat. Please hold, she replied. And, to my astonishment, the phone began playing hold music. The girl from Ipanema of all things. I stared at the phone in disbelief before the voice returned. Thank you for holding. We have an asset in your area. Move to the south entrance of the mall and wait near the men's restroom. The contractor will arrive within 30 minutes. I might not have 30 minutes, I warned. They could be closing in on me right now. The contractor will arrange for immediate extraction if the situation escalates. Do you require medical assistance? No, I said firmly. I'm combat ready. The line went dead with a final click. I stood up from the table and began walking, doing my best to blend in with the crowd, trying to appear like just another holiday shopper. The south entrance was about a quarter-mile away through the mall. As I left the food court, I glanced over my shoulder, confirming there was no one following me. Good, I had gained a little lead. But I knew better than to relax. Clothing shops, shoe stores, and eateries passed by as I maneuvered along the edge of the crowd. It took nearly 20 minutes, and I was so close I could see the restroom sign, almost shaking with anticipation when I felt a tight grip on my right elbow. A family with 4 kids in bright, puffy coats walked past me, the parents bribing them with promises of hot chocolate to keep them in line. Keep moving, Mr. Thorne, a man said in a barely detectable accent, Eastern European, maybe Russian. I glanced at him. He wore a sharp black suit and a long overcoat. Even if I ignored the accent, he didn't strike me as one of Blackwell's goons. From within his coat, he subtly showed me a small automatic weapon. It took me a second, but I recognized him from the ambush outside my house. "It's Dominic," I corrected. "Very well, Dominic. Please continue walking. I'd rather not handle this here in front of the children, but I will if you make me." He fell silent as we passed a teenage girl, rail thin, dressed in a dark coat with a bright purple backpack. Her hair was tucked under a light purple knit cap, and she was completely absorbed in texting on her phone. "You caught up quicker than I expected," I remarked. "Facial recognition software and the surveillance cameras in this area, we set it up months ago for a different operation. It was pure luck that it was still active. And I noticed you moving in this direction. I found your car in the parking lot." Another family squeezed by, their two young kids clearly at the end of their patience. Even if I were in top shape and armed, there were far too many innocent people around. "Fortunate for me," I muttered. He shrugged. "That's how it goes." He was oddly polite for a hired killer, but I was too cautious to make a move. He directed me into a service corridor across from the restroom, and we walked down it until we reached a corner. My time was up. He shoved me around the bend, pulling out his gun. A heavy, dull clang echoed through the tiled hallway. He staggered forward, took a single step, and collapsed. The girl in the purple cap stood behind him, holding an absurdly large crescent wrench, poised for another swing. Her face was blank. She looked from me to the fallen man, effortlessly balancing the wrench on her narrow shoulder. She crouched, checked his breathing and pupils with practiced ease, then picked up his gun. She cleared the weapon with casual skill, stuffing it into her bag along with the wrench. As an afterthought, she rifled through his coat, pulled out his wallet, and slid it into a metallic envelope. Next, she removed the battery from his phone and tossed it into a trash bin before placing the phone and wallet in the envelope. Standing, she extended her hand toward me with a stone-faced expression. "Come with me if you want to live." I just stared at her until she smirked, her eyes gleaming. "I've always wanted to say that." "Any injuries?" "No. Just an intense craving for revenge," I replied, my tone cold and steady. She reached into her backpack, pulling out a small first aid kit. "Good, we might need you at full strength. I'm your K2 contact. Call me Delaney. Now, can we get the hell out of here before more of Blackwell's men show up?" I nodded, a grim smile forming at the corners of my mouth. "Oh, we're going to do more than that. We're going to take the fight to them." As we exited the mall, I filled Delaney in on the details: Veronica's betrayal, the sale of classified information to Blackwell, and their attempt on my life. With each revelation, I could see a cold, burning rage growing in Delaney's eyes, mirroring my own. "So, what's the plan?" she asked as we reached a plain-looking sedan in the parking garage. I slipped into the passenger seat, my mind already churning with ideas. "First, we secure the remaining evidence. I have a hidden office at home with all the intel I've gathered on their operation. Then, we hit them back. No mercy. No holding back." Delaney's grin was fierce as she started the car. "I like the way you think, Dominic. Let's make these bastards regret crossing you." As we pulled out of the garage, a cold, focused determination settled over me. Veronica and Blackwell had severely underestimated me, and now they would pay for it. I wouldn't rest until justice, my kind of justice, was served. The drive to my house was tense, every shadow a potential hiding spot for an enemy. But Delaney's driving was flawless, her instincts sharp from years of covert work. As we turned onto my street, I spotted the sleek Aston Martin still parked in the driveway. "Nice car," I muttered sarcastically. Delaney narrowed her eyes. "Gift from a friend, I assume?" I nodded, my jaw tightening. "Yeah, Veronica's new toy from Blackwell. Guess he likes to keep his assets happy." We parked a block away, approaching the house on foot, using the darkness and neighboring houses for cover. As we got closer, I spotted Veronica through the living room window, pacing anxiously with her phone pressed to her ear. "Looks like someone's getting nervous," Delaney whispered. "What's the plan?" I thought it over. "We need that evidence. I'll cause a distraction and draw her out. You slip inside and grab the data from my office. It's hidden behind a panel in the study third bookshelf on the left. War and Peace is the trigger." Delaney nodded, her expression serious. "And if she gets in my way, do whatever you need to." I responded, my tone icy. "Leave her alive, I want answers before this ends." Delaney gave a silent nod and disappeared into the shadows, moving around to the back of the house. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the confrontation ahead. Then, with deliberate strides, I approached the front door and rang the bell. The look of shock on Veronica's face when she opened the door was almost laughable. "Dominic, but how?" I pushed past her, my eyes sweeping the room for any immediate threats. "Surprised to see me breathing, darling. Sorry to disappoint." Veronica's shock quickly turned to feigned concern. "Dominic? Thank God you're okay. I've been so worried ever since I heard about the attack." "Save it," I cut her off coldly. "I know everything, Veronica, about Blackwell, about the classified information you've been selling. Did you really think you could hide it from me?" Her face went pale, the mask crumbling. "You don't understand, Dominic. It's not what you think. Jonathan. Jonathan, I spat, as if the name itself was poison. On a first-name basis with the arms dealer now, are we? How thoughtful of him to buy you that car. I'm sure it wasn't just for betraying your country and your husband. Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an exit. Please, just let me explain. You're in danger, Dominic. Jonathan has resources you can't imagine. I stepped closer, my voice low and menacing. I've faced worse. And I'm not alone in this. A flicker of fear crossed her face. What do you mean? Before I could answer, a dull thud echoed from upstairs. Veronica's head snapped toward the noise. What was that? Is someone else here? I grabbed her arm, stopping her from investigating. Doesn't matter. You're not going anywhere. It was time for her to face the consequences. As if on cue, Delaney appeared at the top of the stairs, holding a small hard drive in her hand. Got it. We should move. Veronica's eyes widened in recognition. You're the girl from the mall. Who are you? What are you doing in my house? Ignoring her, Delaney turned to me. Perimeter's still clear. But we shouldn't test our luck. What do you want to do with her? She nodded toward Veronica. I thought for a moment, then made up my mind. She's coming with us. Blackwell will be looking for her, and I want to know everything she knows. Dominic, please, Veronica begged, her voice trembling. You don't understand what you're getting into. Jonathan will kill all of us. I tightened my grip on her arm. He can try. But first, you're going to tell us everything, every detail, every contact, every dirty little secret. And God help you if I think you're lying. As we led her out to the car, I could see the weight of her situation finally settling in. The woman I had loved, the life we had built together, it was all a deception. But I pushed aside any remaining emotions. There would be time for regret later. Right now, I had a mission to complete and a score to settle. Delaney slid behind the wheel again, expertly navigating the quiet suburban streets. In the back seat, Veronica sat silently, her face a mask of fear and resignation. I kept my eyes on the road behind us, scanning for any signs of pursuit. Where are we going? Veronica finally asked in a near whisper. Somewhere safe, I replied, not bothering to look at her. Somewhere Blackwell won't find us, at least, not until we're ready for him. As the city lights disappeared behind us, a grim satisfaction settled over me. The tables had turned, and I was the one in control now. Veronica and Blackwell had no idea what was coming, and I intended to keep it that way until it was too late for them to stop me. The road stretched out in front of us, dark and filled with possibilities. Whatever lay ahead, I was ready for it. They had tried to destroy everything I had built, but now it was my turn, and I would show no mercy. Later, at the safe house, I leaned against the wall, my eyes never leaving Veronica as she paced the small room like a caged animal. The past 24 hours had been a whirlwind of betrayal, violence, and cold calculation. Now, in the harsh light of morning, I could see how it had worn her down. Could let her feel even a fraction of the pain she had caused. You can't keep me here forever, Dominic, she hissed, her earlier pleas replaced by venom. I didn't bother to respond, focusing instead on the bank of security monitors I had set up. The safe house was impenetrable, every entrance protected by multiple layers of defense. If Blackwell's men managed to find us, they'd have one hell of a fight waiting for them. Delaney's voice crackled over the comms. Perimeter's clear. No activity within 5 miles. Copy that, I replied, my voice calm. Stay alert. These guys are sneaky. I could feel Veronica's stare burning into me. When I finally looked at her, the hatred in her eyes was unmistakable. You don't know what you're up against, Dominic, she said, her voice filled with malice. Jonathan will find us. And when he does, I cut her off, my tone as cold as ice. When he does, he'll regret the day he ever crossed Dominic Thorne. And you're a fool for going along with it. Her face twisted with rage. You arrogant bastard. You think you're better than everyone else, don't you? Always the big hero. The perfect soldier. Did it ever cross your mind that maybe I wanted more? More than just being a trophy wife to a man who cared more about his job than his marriage. A flicker of anger flared within me, but I quickly suppressed it. So you sold out your country. You got into bed with a man who profits from death and destruction. Tell me, Veronica, was it worth it? Was the money worth throwing everything away? For a moment I saw a crack in her defenses, a glimmer of doubt in her eyes, but it vanished, replaced by cold defiance. You don't understand, Dominic. Jonathan, me real power, not just being the pretty face behind your career, and the information we sold. It was going to change the world. I couldn't help but laugh. Change the world. Yeah, more weapons in the hands of criminals, more innocent lives destroyed. You're delusional if you think Blackwell cares about anything but filling his pockets. Before she could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but I instantly recognized the encryption. It was my contact in the task force. We have a location on Blackwell Private Island off the coast. Major arms deal in 48 hours. A surge of anticipation rushed through me. This was it. The chance to take down Blackwell and his entire operation in one blow. I turned back to Veronica, a cold smile creeping across my face. Looks like your boyfriend's luck just ran out. Her eyes widened in fear. Dominic, please, you don't have to do this. We can still figure something out. I'll tell you everything I know. Just don't go after Jonathan, he'll kill you, Veronica begged. I stepped closer, my voice calm but menacing. No, Veronica. He'll try, and he'll fail. When it's over, you'll both rot in a cell for the rest of your pathetic lives, turning away from her. I was already mentally focused on the mission ahead. Her desperate pleas faded into the background noise as I concentrated on the task at hand. There was no room for second thoughts, no space for mercy. Blackwell and his entire operation had to be dismantled, and I was going to make sure of it. Hours passed in a blur of preparations, checking and rechecking weapons, going over the intel again and again, memorizing every inch of Blackwell's compound. The task force gathered a team of hardened operatives from various agencies, all united by a common goal, taking down one of the world's most dangerous arms dealers. As night settled in, I made a final sweep of the safe house's security. Veronica sat in a sullen silence, the fight drained out of her. I felt nothing as I looked at her. The woman I once loved, now nothing more than a stranger, a traitor. I'm leaving, I said, my voice emotionless. When this is over, the authorities will come for you. I suggest you start thinking about how to save whatever is left of your miserable life. She looked up at me, her eyes hollow and red-rimmed. Dominic, I'm sorry for everything. I paused at the door but didn't turn back. Save it for the judge, Veronica. Your apologies mean nothing to me. With that, I stepped out into the night, leaving behind the remnants of my old life and embracing the cold certainty of the mission ahead. The journey to Blackwell's Island was a model of stealth and precision. Under the cover of darkness, we approached in a specially modified submersible, its silent engines slicing through the dark water. The weight of my tactical gear felt familiar, each piece of equipment a trusted ally in the brutal fight ahead. As we neared the shore, I signaled the team to surface. One by one, we rose from the water like shadows, our black wetsuits blending into the night. The island loomed ahead, a dark silhouette against the starry sky. Alpha Team, sound off, I whispered into my comm. 4 quiet clicks came in response, one from each member of my squad. Good, everyone was in place and ready. Bravo Team, status. In position and ready to provide overwatch, came the quiet reply. The snipers were already set, their rifles aimed at key locations around the compound. I took a deep breath, centering myself for the battle ahead. This wasn't just about taking down Blackwell or avenging my betrayal. It was about stopping a man who had profited from chaos and death for far too long. And I would see it through, no matter the cost. Remember, people, I said, my voice low but firm, Blackwell is the primary target. We want him alive if possible. But don't take any unnecessary chances. Anyone else is expendable. Clear. A chorus of affirmatives echoed through the comms. These were professionals, the best of the best. They understood the stakes. All right, let's move. We advanced through the thick jungle surrounding the compound, our movements silent and precise. Years of training kicked in as every sense sharpened, alert to the slightest hint of danger. The occasional chirp of a bird or rustle of leaves were the only sounds breaking the eerie stillness. As we neared the perimeter, I raised a fist, signaling the team to halt. Up ahead, barely visible in the dim light, was the first line of defense, a tall wall topped with razor wire, patrolled by armed guards. I tapped my comm twice, the signal for Bravo Team to eliminate the sentries. 2 muffled cracks pierced the air, so quiet they could have been mistaken for snapping twigs. The guards dropped silently, their bodies caught and lowered to the ground by their comrades before they could make a sound. Clear, came the whisper over the comm. We moved forward, scaling the wall with practiced efficiency. Once over, we split into 2 groups, each heading for a designated entry point. My partner, a former Delta Force operative named Martinez, fell into step beside me as we approached a side entrance to the main building. The lock was no match for his electronic bypass tool. Within seconds, we were inside. The cool, air-conditioned interior was a stark contrast to the humid night outside. I signaled for Martinez to take the lead, covering him as we moved deeper into the compound. The intel had been solid, the layout matched our briefing perfectly, allowing us to navigate the maze-like corridors with ease. As we neared the central area where Blackwell was likely holed up, the sounds of voices reached us, multiple languages, the clinking of glasses. The arms deal was in progress. I tapped my comm 3 times, signaling the team to converge and prepare for entry. Within moments, I sensed rather than saw the rest of the squad taking their positions around the room. We were in place, ready to spring the trap. On my mark, I whispered. 3, 2, 1, execute. The world erupted into chaos. Flashbangs detonated, filling the room with blinding light and ear-splitting noise. We stormed in, weapons drawn, shouting commands in several languages. FBI on the ground, now. Interpol. Hands where we can see them. Most of the arms buyers dropped immediately, stunned by the sudden raid. A few made a grab for their weapons, but they were quickly subdued. Amid the chaos, I scanned the room for the one face I was looking for, Jonathan Blackwell. I spotted him at the back, trying to slip away in the confusion. "Not this time, you bastard," I growled, charging toward him, dodging panicked dealers and overturned furniture. Blackwell spotted me heading his way, his eyes widening with both fear and recognition. He spun to flee, but I was quicker. I tackled him hard, slamming him to the ground with all my weight behind it. He fought back, landing a sharp elbow to my wrist, but the adrenaline surging through me dulled the pain. "It's over, Blackwell," I growled, pinning him face down on the marble floor. "You're finished," he kept struggling, cursing at me in several languages. I yanked his arms behind his back, perhaps a bit more forcefully than necessary, and secured him with reinforced cuffs. As I pulled him to his feet, I leaned in close, my voice low and threatening. "You made a huge mistake coming after me and my family. I hope it was worth it." The terror in his eyes confirmed everything I needed to know. He had underestimated me, believing he could use Veronica to reach me without facing any consequences. But now, as the full gravity of his situation hit him, the look on his face made it clear he knew just how badly he had misjudged me. I shoved him toward Martinez, who took over handling the prisoner. Around us, the rest of the team was busy securing the arms dealers and collecting evidence. The operation had gone off without a hitch. As the adrenaline began to wear off, I paused to survey the scene. Years of hard work, months of personal turmoil, all culminating in this moment. Blackwell's empire was in ruins, his buyers apprehended, and a wealth of intelligence on global arms trafficking now in our possession. But I felt no joy, no triumph, only a grim sense of fulfillment. Justice had been served, and a dangerous threat had been eliminated. There would be time later for reflection, but for now there was still work to be done. I activated my contacting the task force headquarters. "This is Alpha 1, target secured. Blackwell is in custody. Operation successful." The response was immediate. "Copy that. Alpha 1, excellent work. Extraction team en route. Secure the area and prepare for debrief." I acknowledged the order and turned back to oversee the remaining tasks. The night was far from over, but the most difficult part was behind us. Blackwell was captured, and soon Veronica would face her own reckoning. As I moved through the compound, ensuring evidence was gathered and prisoners processed, I allowed myself a brief cold smile. They had tried to ruin me, to use me for their own gain. Instead, they had only sealed their own fates. Let them rot in prison, I thought. Let them live with the knowledge that they had brought this on themselves. I had a mission to complete, and a life to rebuild, and I would do it without an ounce of remorse for the choices I had made. The extraction proceeded without issue. Our team and prisoners swiftly loaded onto helicopters as the first rays of dawn stretched across the sky. As we lifted off, I watched Blackwell's island compound fade into the distance, knowing it would soon be overrun with forensic experts and intelligence officers scouring through every bit of data we had seized. The flight back to the mainland passed in a blur, the exhaustion and post-mission crash catching up with me. I managed to catch a few minutes of restless sleep, my mind still churning over the events of the past days. When we touched down at a secure military facility, I was alert again, ready for the next phase. Blackwell was immediately whisked away for interrogation, but I knew I wouldn't be allowed in the room. Too much personal involvement. That was fine. I had other matters to deal with. I made my way to the command center, where the task force leaders were already gathering for an initial debrief. As I entered, several heads turned, and I caught a few glances of respect, maybe even a touch of awe. Good, let them see the consequences of crossing the wrong person. Thorne, the lead agent Harding, a grizzled veteran, greeted me with a nod. "Hell of a job out there. Initial reports suggest we've got enough on Blackwell to lock him away for several lifetimes, not to mention his buyers." I allowed myself a small, grim smile. "Good, what about stateside? Any news on Veronica?" Harding's face grew serious. "We've got a team heading to the safe house as we speak. She'll be in custody within the hour." I nodded, a cold sense of satisfaction settling over me. I want to be there when they bring her in. Harding looked like he was about to argue, but after a moment of hesitation, he relented. "All right. But remember, you're strictly hands-off. You've done your part. Let the system take care of the rest." I didn't respond. We both knew the system wasn't always reliable, often manipulated by those with power and influence. Still, I had no plans to take justice into my own hands. Veronica would answer for what she had done, one way or another. The drive to the safe house felt interminable. By the time we arrived, local law enforcement and FBI agents had already secured the area. I stepped out of the SUV, my body sore from the night's exertions, but my mind sharp and focused. As I approached the house, the front door opened, and two agents emerged with Veronica between them, her hands cuffed behind her back. She looked small, defeated, nothing like the confident woman I had once married. When her eyes met mine, they widened with a mix of fear and something else, resignation perhaps. I stopped a few feet away, my expression cold and unreadable. "It's over," Veronica, I said flatly. Blackwell's in custody. His whole operation has been taken apart. She stayed silent for what felt like a long time, simply gazing at me with hollow, empty eyes. Eventually she spoke, her voice barely a whisper. What happens now? Now, I thought, feeling a surge of cold fury. Now, you face the consequences of your actions, treason, espionage, conspiracy. I hope it was all worth it, Veronica. Her shoulders slumped as she muttered, Dominic, I. Save it, I interrupted sharply. I don't want to hear your excuses or apologies. You made your choice. Now live with it. I turned away, unable to stand looking at her any longer. As the agents led her to the waiting vehicle, I heard her call out one last time, Dominic, please. I'm sorry for everything. I didn't turn back. Her words meant nothing to me anymore. The woman I had loved, the life we had built together, it was all gone, destroyed by her greed and treachery. As the car pulled away, a weight lifted from my shoulders. It wasn't entirely over yet. There would be trials, debriefings, mountains of paperwork, but the hardest part was behind me. I had survived. I had turned the tables on those who tried to ruin me, and I had done it without sacrificing who I was. Harding approached, a look of reluctant admiration on his weathered face. You did well, Thorn. Not many could have pulled this off. I gave a nod, accepting the compliment for what it was. What's next? He raised an eyebrow. Next, you've got a mountain of paperwork to tackle. Then, I'd suggest taking a long vacation. You've earned it. I shook my head. I don't need a vacation. I need to get back to work. Harding studied me for a moment before nodding. All right. I'll see what I can arrange. But Thorn, take some time to process all of this. It's been one hell of a ride. As he walked away, I stood there, watching the sun rise higher in the sky. Process it. There was nothing to process. I had done what needed to be done, nothing more. Nothing less. Veronica and Blackwell had made their choices, and now they were paying the price. As for me, I was prepared for whatever came next. The betrayal had cut deep, but it had also set me free. No more divided loyalties, no more secrets gnawing at me from the inside. I was now a weapon, sharpened and ready to be aimed at the next threat. The following weeks blurred by in a flurry of debriefings, court hearings, and endless consultations with lawyers. I provided every piece of evidence I had gathered against Veronica, ensuring she would face the full force of justice. The divorce proceedings were swift and unforgiving. I made sure she wouldn't see a cent of our shared assets. Throughout it all, I remained focused and driven, with no room for second thoughts or regrets. Veronica and Blackwell had made their choices, and now they were paying for them. I was already looking ahead, ready for the next challenge. Months passed, and eventually the dust settled. I found myself living in a new apartment in Rome, the eternal city, a fitting setting for the next chapter of my life. The events of the past year had changed me, hardened me in ways I was still coming to understand. But along with the change came a strange sense of peace. One quiet evening, my phone rang, the secure line I kept for official matters. I answered without hesitation. Thorn. The voice on the other end was familiar, my handler from the agency. We've got a situation brewing in Buenos Aires. We need someone with your particular skill set. You interested? I felt a surge of excitement, the familiar rush of a new mission. Details. Classified. Need to know basis only, but I can tell you it's big, potentially bigger than Blackwell. I didn't pause. I'm in. When do I leave? Wheels up in 6 hours. I'll send a car. As I packed my go bag, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The man staring back at me wasn't the same one who had discovered his wife's betrayal months ago. He was tougher, colder, but also more focused and more certain of his place in the world. I was no longer weighed down by secrets or torn by divided loyalties. The betrayal had cut deep, but it had also freed me. Now, I was living as my true self, a warrior, a protector, a force to be reckoned with. As I boarded the plane to Buenos Aires, a sense of anticipation welled up inside me. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I was ready to face them head on. My past was behind me, its lessons carved into my very soul, and my future stretched out before me, full of possibilities and purpose. The plane taxied down the runway, gathering speed for takeoff. As we lifted into the sky, I settled back in my seat, a small, determined smile forming at the corners of my mouth. The game was on once again, and this time I was playing for keeps. Veronica's betrayal and Jonathan's attempt on my life were now part of the past. I had emerged victorious, and the future looked brighter and full of hope. And with that, our story comes to a close. Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I'll see you there.